Hello, good afternoon or good morning to everyone. I'm welcoming everybody to our webinar for this month that is basically a follow-up of the first month of the adapt stage, and I'm happy that people are joining in slowly. Please let me know if you can hear me. Can you please write a short response if you can hear my voice and if everything is coming through smoothly. Thank you, Benedict. Welcome to this webinar. Welcome, Ali, and I can also see that David is with us. Perfect. Thank you. I'm actually quite close physically to David. I'm currently in the UK, in London, which is just a couple of hours away from David. And I'm happy that you all joining in. Benedict from India and Ali from Zanzibar. Okay, we'll see if people are still joining us as we move along. This morning we had unfortunately only one participant on the OEP, so I don't know if people are still I don't know, celebrating the 4th of July that the US celebrated yesterday, or why people are a bit or why people are absent today from the webinars. But we will slowly get into it, and I will explain what we will talk about today, and then we'll see if anybody else joins. So we will go into a bit more details in regards to the statistics of the online education program so far. I will just share a few details, not too much, and then not a complete overview, but basically give you some ideas of what has happened so far and what the participation was. Then the second part, I think that will be the longest part of the whole webinar. I will explain a little bit how you can plan a session and what are some of the tools and criteria you can use. And then the third point will focus on coaching techniques, and particularly on the aspect of how you can start a game quickly. This is based on some feedback that I received from you participants in the monthly feedback form. Some people have mentioned like, oh yeah, I'm struggling with more difficult games that have so many rules. My children are getting bored, or it's difficult to explain all the rules. My children don't like to talk about the social impact. So all these aspects I will try to cover in this point number 3. And then point number 4 and 5 will be relatively quick. It will be about the labeling of games on SSP when you enter them. And then the fifth point will be a short overview or a short introduction into SSP libraries, which I would like us to use in future when we enter games on SSP. And then we will have a final round of questions and answers, and then I will give you a summary of the tasks you need to complete in July. As always, please ask questions in between or whenever they come up, and I will answer them as soon as I can. I saw that Valeria just joined us as well. Welcome, Valeria, from I'm not sure, Paraguay, I think, to this webinar. So yeah, thank you very much for joining in. Just need to quickly check something. Yeah, I was right. I just cross-checked Valeria from Paraguay. Wonderful. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Here are a few numbers regarding the online education program so far. in the first month, we have used a different feedback sheet in March, but for the monthly feedback sheet of April, which was the questionnaire that was posted on Facebook Workplace and that you filled in, there you received 13 responses from a total of 30 participants, which makes it 43% return rate. And the last month's, the monthly feedback from May, we had 8 responses out of 30 participants, which makes it 27%. So a little bit less than 1/3. And if I'm looking at the past months, the month of June, when you were supposed to enter your adaptations on SSP, there were 12 games entered in total from 5 different coaches. And underneath you can find the expected games that should be entered on SSP in June, and that were 60 games from 30 different coaches. If you remember correctly, if you remember, the task for June was to enter at least 2 adaptations. So considering these numbers, we had in SSP we have now 20% of the expected games, and 17% of the coaches have entered games on SSP. So yeah, I don't know, you can probably post some comments about these numbers, what you think about it, if you have any thoughts on that. Yeah, we'll probably also reflect on yourself. If you have submitted your feedback for April or May, or if you have entered any games on SSP, I will not give you now individual feedback about your performance. Some of you, I know Valeria, for example, is very active with SSP. Benedict is also active, but I haven't seen any adaptations, I think. So yeah, you can think for yourself what you think about your performance and your participation in the OEP so far. But these are the statistics from my point of view. I would like to be them a little bit higher. I would love to be all the numbers about around 50% or above, which would be great. So we are working on that, and we're also trying to figure out what the reasons are for these lower numbers, especially over the past months now, where we were expecting more games on SSP, and where basically only about 20% of the people have entered games and adaptations. Okay, that's the statistics. Yeah, welcome Andrea from India, I think in Bangalore. Yeah, thank you for joining in. Yeah, probably one last word about the online education program and the statistics. Most of you who are here on this webinar, you are very active with participation and with being involved, sending feedback, using Facebook Workplace. So most of these stats probably don't apply or don't reflect so much your participation. But I wanted to share that with you, so you have also a better idea of the bigger picture. Okay. Good. Nice. Okay. Next, we going to the second point, which is planning a session. And I think the first point is like just a general important statement to know that planning a session is important, as it gives you the space for flexibility and creativity when you are actually on field and running the session. So first, it might be sounding like contradictory and like a bit contradictory that planning on the one hand and creativity and flexibility are depending on each other. But I think it actually is like that, because when you plan and when you have an idea what you want to do, it then gives you the freedom and the space to see, to react depending on the situation, to really see what is going on in that moment. And you don't need to occupy the space, or your brain doesn't need to occupy the space of thinking like, oh, what do I need to do next? And what is best fitting now? No, you have a general plan, and this general plan can then help you to react according to the situation and still make changes. So planning a session doesn't mean that you have to always execute it exactly the way you have planned it. Now I want to go through a couple of points quite briefly to explain to you what are some of the guidelines that I'm using when I'm creating a session. So the first point would be to not try to put too many games into one session. My guideline or my recommendation would be to have 3 to 5 games planned for a 60-minute session. If you have less than 3, that might be a bit too little. If you have more than 5, I can almost guarantee you that you will stress and you will not give yourself and your players the time it needs to go and play the games properly. When you start the session, I would recommend to start with a warm-up, and the CSC curriculum and the Sport for Social Impact curriculum has various ideas for warm-ups. Circle of Friends is one of them. Leadership Lines is another one. And if you have seen, the Circle of Friends also has so many different variations, so many different options that give you many different opportunities to play it in different ways. After our bodies and our minds are warmed up, we continue usually with 1 or 2 games that address a specific theme. You will see in the examples that I will give you on the next 2 slides that I like to pick a certain theme that then I focus on in that session. So it can be either conflict prevention, skills for life, health and wellness, whatever you like. You can obviously also mix different themes, but I personally like to have a certain theme for one session. Okay, after you have played these 1 or 2 games that address a specific social issue, then you usually should try to alter games, so to change them and not get too much into heavy social messages. So please consider to, after a more heavier game that probably had more talking, or that was a bit more difficult topic, let's say child abuse or sexual abuse or HIV or alcohol abuse. So topics that are a bit heavier, alter those topics with lighter social messages. As well as difficult games, alter them with more easier games in terms of the rules and the understanding of the game. And also alter games that include a lot of running with games that are more stationary and where people can rest and catch their breath. So that is also important when you plan a session, to not make it too one-sided. And what we usually do is to finish a session with a fun game. I've given here a few examples like Head Catch or Drogba for Fun, or the many other fun games that we have in our curriculum, or that I'm sure you also know that are very popular in your community. So that's usually also very nice to finish the session on a happy note, and the fun games are usually very well suited for that. Okay, so you can now understand a little bit better what I was talking about in this theory. I will now give you 2 examples of how a session can possibly look like. So if you plan a session, I said earlier that I usually like to decide for a focus topic. Now this session would be a focus on health and wellness, alcohol and drug abuse, and fun. As you probably remember, the fun aspect should be a part of any session you are running with your players. So no matter what other social issues you you address or focuses you have, fun is always a focus, no matter what session you're running. So this session that I've conducted here, and by the way, hello to Jaspreet as well. Thank you for everybody who is still joining in. I hope and Betty is also online, I can see now. So yeah, welcome to the webinar. I hope the connection is good and you can hear me. In this session that I have written down here is Circle of Friends as a warm-up, and here particularly that variation that with numbers. If you look at the Circle of Friends variations that have been also part of the curriculum, you can see there's, I almost literally would say, hundreds of different ways to play Circle of Friends. So that is an activity to warm up our bodies. It's a physical activity, so people are moving. They can probably get a little bit tired, but we also want them obviously to get active, to warm up their muscles, warm up their minds, their voices. So after that, we could go into a game that is more physically demanding, even like Smith for Health and Wellness. So that is a game, if you remember, where people are also standing in a circle. They're going to a player and asking for the ball. Then they receive the ball, find another player, receive the ball again, and within 30 seconds, they try to have as many touches, either with their head or with their foot. That depends on what instructions you give them. They try to have as many touches within 30 seconds as possible. So this is very physically demanding. So if you make them go for 30 seconds, they will be tired afterwards. And if you play it for a couple of rounds, that will definitely make them make them tired. So after that game, I would move into a game that is a bit less physically demanding. So head catch is a very good example or a very good opportunity to play a game that has no physical activity, but is mentally very demanding. So people have to make quick decisions if they either head or catch the ball. And after this 5 to 10 minutes where they were able to catch their breath, but still were mentally involved and active, you could go now. In that case, I've decided to focus on alcohol and drug abuse. Would be a game called Garincha for Safe Spaces, which was also sent to you, I think, a couple of weeks ago. It was one of our monthly curriculums, which is again physically demanding. It's a tag game where you have 4 different spaces on the pitch where people can be safe from the alcohol abusers, and those spaces represent different spaces in the community where children can or should be safe. So this is a fun game. Children usually like tag games, run around, tag each other, chase each other. So that would be also something that is physically demanding. Children might get a little bit tired, but definitely a very much fun game. And then you can end the game on a more game to goal, on a more football-like game, which is Garincha Drunken Football, where the one team is allowed to run, the other team is only allowed to walk. So it's a game to goal with special rules, a fun game that addresses still alcohol and drug abuse. You can have a couple of questions with them at the end or in between before you switch the roles. And yeah, so that is one example of how a session could look like. Okay, I want to give you one more example. I will go through it a little bit quicker since I've talked already a lot about planning a session. So the second example would be a focus on skills for life, problem solving, teamwork, and again, fun. This session, we would start with leadership lines, which is again a warm-up game. It requires physical activity, but it also focuses a lot on leadership, which can be again important and lead us into the topic of problem solving and teamwork, because leadership is obviously an important aspect of teamwork and of solving problems within a team. The second game would be then Drogba Skills for Life, whereas the focus more on technique. The children would learn the Drogba skills. They would train their vision so they wouldn't bump and run into each other. Concentration is an aspect. So it's not extremely physically demanding because they don't really need to run fast, but it definitely takes a lot of concentration. It's more mentally demanding. But after these two games, you more probably want to go into a bit less physical activity. So after leadership lines, Drogba skills for life, depending on the strength of your players. If you want them to rest a little bit more physically, you could play a game like Lions Game that is definitely very much focusing on problem solving and on teamwork. It's mentally very demanding, but the physical activity is quite little and quite low, which gives them the opportunity to rest, catch their breath. After that, you could then again pick up the speed a little bit, or play a game that involves a little bit more activity and is more physically demanding, which could be then Drogba for conflict prevention. If you remember, that's the game where the person with the cone is the only person who can score, and on each team you would have one person that has a cone. So it's a game to goal with this special rule. It's a fun game, but it's also a great problem-solving game for teams. And then after that game, which is probably quite tiring because it's a football game, people will be running, trying to score. You would need to then decide. I've listed now two different options. Either if your children or players are very keen on another football game, they're very strong, they are hungry for the ball, you could play Drogba for fun, where they could practice Drogba skills. It's a fun game to end the session. It's a game to score goals and, as I mentioned, practice the Drogba skills. If they are not as physically strong and you feel like, or they feel like they want to rather do something slower and not including the ball, 3 in a row could be another option where, you don't have a ball. It's also, again, a great problem-solving game as a team. It's fun, and it's ending the session on an easy and on a light note. Okay, that are these two examples of planning a session. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm more than happy to answer. If you don't have any questions, I would slowly move on to the next slide. But I'm also giving you a few seconds to probably mention or write down some of the questions you might have. Let me see. Okay, it doesn't seem like anybody has any questions. I would then move on. And now on the next slide, you see the aspect of how can you start a game quickly. And we will talk a little bit about coaching techniques. So some general suggestions that I have in terms of what you can do to start a game quickly is, first, to show an example. If you remember, that is also always in the coaching guidelines on each of the curriculums that we send. It's always suggested that you show an example. So when you explain things, when you explain rules, when you explain what you expect your players to do, the easiest way is to show it yourself, to show an example instead of explaining things with your words. So simply do the things that the players should be doing, run to the respective cone, or run to do the dribbling with the ball that you want them to do, or go to the space you want them to run to. All those things, the best way to make them understand the game is to show an example. Okay. Regarding your question, Atreya, is it necessary to conduct games in a particular order? I think I would need a little bit more explanation on that, what you mean with particular order. I don't think that, my first answer would be, I don't think that there needs to be a particular order, but nevertheless, I think there's certain techniques that can make it easier for you as a coach to make the game a success and to make the children enjoy the game more. So in that sense, I would say there is certain techniques, certain hints that can really help you when you coach, and that will help your children to enjoy the game more. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. If not, please specify a little bit what you mean with particular order, then I'll try to get back to you. The second point is introduce rules gradually. So that's a very important aspect of that you don't introduce all the rules that the game has at one time, but at the beginning you just introduce one or two rules and then you let the children play. And after you have seen that they have understood what they need to do, then you stop the game and add more and then play again, and so on and so on. You will see what that specifically means when I will explain to you on the next slide, again with a particular example. The third point says introduce the social impact gradually. So same as the rules, you shouldn't start like talking first about all the social impact and topics you want to discuss and like the topics that the game addresses. This will make your children bored and they will already lose their interest for the game before it has even started. So you can start the game, even if you teach about a specific social issue, you can start the game without a social impact message and add the messages during the activity. Sorry, there is a misspelling, I just see it. So the sentence should mean you can start the game without a social impact and add the messages during the activity. Okay, so you will again probably understand a little bit better on the next slide when I do it on an example. And the last point, I think, which is also very important to all of us, to us coaches as well as players, that you allow mistakes, conflict, and confusion to happen for yourself, but also for your players. So mistakes, conflict, and confusion are part of the game, and they can also they are part of the learning process. So you can use that, and they can really help you and your players to learn through them. I very often coaches have the feeling of like, oh yeah, I have to avoid that the children are doing mistakes, and I have to avoid that there's no confusion, so I have to explain everything properly, and I have to avoid that there's no conflict, so I have to step in. No, I think that also takes away the joy for the children if you try to do all of that for them. But take all these things with you through the game. So if there is conflict coming up, you can stop it and then they can discuss what they want to do. If there is confusion coming up, then you stop it and you clarify. But don't try to anticipate all the things that might happen, because that will also prevent you from starting the game. So let me move on to an example, which will hopefully help you to understand. So I will pick now the game Smith for Child Rights, which is a game about the right of children to a healthy life. So it has been part of the curriculum, I think, in April that we sent to you. So on the left, you see the diagram, which might bring it back to your mind, back to your memory, help you to remind what the game was about. So how would I start now? I would have all the players in front of me, and then I would give two simple instructions. I need two teams, and each team has one ball. And then they would need to solve their problem. They would distribute themselves into two teams. Each team would get a ball. And then I would say each team needs to dribble or pass through all four triangles. If you have three triangles, that's also, if you use rectangles, whatever, but in this case we have there four triangles. I would tell the players, I would set up the triangles, they would be set up. I would say each team gets a ball and you dribble or pass through the triangles, and once you have done that, you are finished. And then I would send them off and they would go. That would be all those instructions I would give, not more. And that's very quick. That's, I mean, not even a minute to explain. And then they would take the ball and run around, try to go through all the triangles and be finished. what I would anticipate to happen is that one person would take the ball, run through all the triangles, and then everybody else would just run after that one person. That's what usually would happen. Then that's fine, that's not a problem. So then I would say, okay, they would come close again, and I would say, now each team needs to go through all 4 triangles, and in between each triangle, everybody on the team needs to touch the ball. And then I would send them off again, and they would go and play. So that would, if that happens, that one person runs with the ball through all the triangles, I can just introduce the next rule and say, like, this is not allowed anymore. Now you need to pass to each other. Everybody needs to touch the ball before you can go into one triangle. And that would already make the game a bit slower, because they would need to figure out that everybody touches the ball, and then they go through the triangle. Each team still has 1 ball. So there's no competition for the ball. Each team has their ball, they go through the triangles. Play again. So it might take them probably a minute or 2 to get through all these triangles. Then I would get them close again and would say, okay, cool. Now, what do you think is necessary in order to live a healthy life? So you see, I have played already 2 times without a social message, and I introduce now the social message only in the third time, before I sent them for the 3rd time to play. So once they have told me what they think is necessary in order to have a healthy life, I would assign those answers to these triangles. And then I would say, okay, we have now these 4 triangles. They represent this, this, and this. Let's say we need information about healthy food. We need enough sleep, and we need enough rest, and we need safe drinking water. All the different aspects that they might mention. I would send them off and say, play again. But now each time when you go through the triangle, you need to shout as a team what it represents. And then they play again. Same rules as before. Everybody needs to touch the ball. Everything remains the same. It's just one additional rule. Everybody needs to shout what the triangle represents. Once they are done with this, and now all these number 5 and number 6, what you see on this slide, is optional. You could also now stop the game. If you don't have enough time, or if that already took now 15 minutes or 15 minutes of your time and you need to move on to the next game, that's also fine. Then you can play number 5 and number 6 at the next time, next week, or the next session. You can bring up this game again. You don't need to start with the very basic, because they already know this game now, or at least they might remember it. And then you can start at a later stage or at a further point. So now at the next stage, you could take 1 ball away and say, like, okay, now it becomes a competition. Now you play against each other and you try to score with your team on the triangle, and the other team tries to defend. And then you play again. And then it becomes a possession game, and those teams try to score on all 4 triangles. It's a football game with basically 4 different targets. And then as another point, you could add also goals. As you see in the diagram, there's goals on the end lines. You can add those goals and say, like, okay, after you have managed to get the ball in all 4 triangles, you can then also score a goal. And then you can also again ask what these goals can represent, what do they think what it can mean in life, and so on. You can have then further conversations. But those points, you can also break them up into multiple sessions. You don't need to do all of that in one session. That's how also the game can be kept interesting. You don't need to introduce everything at once, everything at the beginning. Introduce it simple and easy at the beginning, and then you progress to more difficult. I hope this has been helpful. Please ask me any questions about this example or about the coaching techniques that I have just explained. And then I will move on to the next slide. So please let me know if you have any questions about this coaching technique that I have just explained. And I'm more than happy to help you, to answer. I just saw that Jorge just came online as well, or a bit earlier, I don't know when, but welcome to the webinar as well. Okay, Seems like everything is clear. Circle of friends, which is a very good warm-up routine. Examples. Yeah, you can. The order of the games is really up to you. You can also start with three in a row if you want. You don't need to necessarily start with Circle of Friends. Um, it really the order of games doesn't really matter in that sense. Considering your previous question, the games don't need to be in a particular order. Um, yeah, no, I wouldn't say. I usually just like to have a warm-up game at the beginning, and that's my preference. I think there is certain advantages of like when people meet for the first time, especially if you have a group that is getting to know each other. I think Circle of Friends can help a lot. And also if people are joining in. So like let's say Circle of Friends is also very easy. You can start it right away and people can join the game easily. So you don't need to interrupt or change teams. Where if you like, let's say you start with three in a row and you start with 10 people and two teams. And then still more people are coming to join the training because they're a little bit late or something happened, then that's more like you need to add them to teams and so on. Where with Circle of Friends, they could just join the circle and continue playing or join in playing. But yeah, in general, I would say it's just really your personal preference. There's no particular reason to place games in a certain order. Okay, if any other questions, please let me know if you have any other questions. I'll slowly move on to the next slide. Labeling games on SSP. So you can see underneath the title there is a pattern that I would like us to use in future when we enter games on SSP. And this pattern is as follows. Is the following. It starts with your name. Then after your name, you enter the name of your organization in brackets. Then you enter the name of the game. And in brackets again, you enter the potential social impact of the game, the social impact that you intend to address with that particular game. So underneath, you can see an example. I made an example with myself. My name, Markus Bench. My organization, CAC, Coaches Across Continents. The name of the game, Action Against Racism. That's just a fake title I just came up with. And then the social impact could be conflict prevention, or also social inclusion could be another one. Like there's certain flexibility what the social impact is. It is your choice what you put in there. So again, you put your name, the name of your organization, the name of the game, and the potential social impact of the game. And underneath that example, you can see a screenshot from Sports Session Planner, and where you see the red circle that says session title, and that's where you would add your title or the title of the game exactly with that pattern as I just described it. And I would like to ask you to continue or to keep this pattern in future for all the games that you are entering on SSP. Okay, that's about labeling games on SSP. If there's any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I will now move on to SSP Libraries. SSP Libraries is something that we would like to use in future for you to easier find the games from each other, but also for us to easier find games from you so we can give you feedback. In order to explain the things a bit more in detail and show you an example, I will now share my screen, and then I will go into Sports Session Planner so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, let me just start. Okay, full screen. Okay, I think you should be seeing my screen now. Yeah, it should be fine. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so now let me just start with Sports Session Planner. So when you go to Sports Session Planner, you need to log in obviously first. I'll do that quickly once it shows me the starting page. Okay, so you enter your name and then you log in, your username and your password. Then you are logged in, and then usually you would be on the home page, on the first page, which looks like this. And the focus I want to have put on now is on the section where it says My Sessions. So it's the fourth tab from the left, and that one says that in that tab and under that tab you will find all the sessions that you have entered. So since I'm logged in now with my account, you can see my sessions here. When you click on the title of a session, this is now just an example here with the circle of friends. When you click on the title of the session, then you can see there's here, it says sharing options. Okay, I'm just marking it now here with blue, sharing options. And usually what you would see, it would be like this, private. All your games, unless you have really changed it, but they're automated, the default settings for your account is that your games are always private. So when it says here sharing options private, in future when you adapt a game or when you enter a new game, not a CAC game. So if you enter a CAC game, please keep that private. But when you enter a newly invented game, either an adaptation or a created game, you please can change the sharing options. And for now, I would like us to put the games into the extras library. So when you click, there's a drop-down menu opening, and then you have the option that says extras library. Once you click extras library, then there will be a new drop-down menu opening, and you can choose. I think for now you only should have the option to choose game adaptations. I don't know if you have the option football mass. I don't think so. I've only added you to the group called game adaptations. So once you choose game adaptations, it will show you then sharing options updated. As you see here in the top left corner, then this game will be in the extras libraries under game adaptations. Okay, so that's I would like you to do for all your adapted games. Please put them into the folder, into the extras library called game adaptations. Okay, good. After you have done this, then you can also access the games and access other people's games through clicking by clicking on the tab called extras library, which is the sixth tab from the left or the third tab from the right. It says extras library. When you click there, then you have here the option to say select extras library, and then again we will see which libraries are available to you. You have to select then at least one, which would here be now Coaches Across Continents game adaptations. That's the library you want to see, and then it will show you all the games that are in that library. For now, this is only Marcus Bench, Circle of Friends. I'm the only person who added a game into the library. I will take it out again because that's not really an adaptation. It is just now for training purposes or to show you the example I did that. And then all the games, now you see here it's empty, but all the games in that library you would be able to see then after clicking on extras library and after selecting the extras library called game adaptations. Okay, I think that's it for the introduction I wanted to give you. Okay, I've stopped sharing my screen. Okay. Cool. Now, okay, I can see there's a couple of questions. Okay. Private and public. What is an extras library? Sorry, I can't hear. Perfect. Okay, cool. No problem. I will get back to it again. I will share my screen. And then hopefully you will be able to see it. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I will go again. You go to My Sessions, which is the fourth tab from the left, and then you click on the title, on any title of the sessions you have in your account. Once you have clicked on the title, you will see the sharing options. So you will see here the title that says sharing options, and then you can choose between different sharing options. What you should do, usually it will be in private mode, so only you can see it. But I want you to change all your adapted games to extras library and game adaptations. Okay, so you put the games that you have adapted into the extras library called game adaptations. After you have done that, you can access these games in extras library, which is basically, it's just a library. It's just like if you imagine a library, and this library has different sections. It's a bit like that. So Sports Session Planner is a huge, big library with many different games, and we have created now a section that is called Game Adaptations. So when you go to Extras Library, you will be able to see all the games that have been entered into that library. Okay, I hope this helps you. I'll stop sharing my screen now. And please let me know if you have any other questions. So now again, I've put here 2 screenshots. You can see it again. Once you click on the title of the game, it says sharing options, and then the yellow circle here on the left gives you the option between extras library, private, my club, and public. And you should please select extras library and then click in the second drop-down menu, which is here in the yellow circle on the right, game adaptations. Yeah, so you don't need to, when you save it, it will automatically go into private mode. I don't know if you save it, if you can already change and save it already for the extras library. If I haven't checked that, if it is possible, yeah, please do that. If not, then first save it, and then in the second step, please change the settings, the sharing options. Yeah, and that is only for your adapted games. Yeah, Valeria, that's very important. You don't need to change it for the CAC games. I would not like them to have in that folder because we all know them. I would only like to have the games that you have adapted in the folder called Game Adaptations. Yeah, you are automatically in the private mode. That's the setting for the accounts. And I also want to keep that way. Otherwise, too many games will be publicly visible, and also too many games that are just trials. So we will keep that as private. That's the default setting for the account, and then you can change it for every single game into game adaptations. Okay, wonderful. Any questions about that? If you don't have any questions about the libraries, then I would like to ask if you have any questions in regards to adapting games. and if you would like to share any successes or difficulties or challenges. And if not about the adaptation of games or adapting games, if you have any other questions or comments, please ask. Those of you who have been here from the beginning, you could see that the number of people who have entered adaptations in the past month was pretty low, 20% or less, which is not very satisfying. So if you have any challenges with adapting games, or if you have any questions, please let me know. And please also reach out to me or to Charlie if you need any special assistance, if you need any individual help, any Skype call and so on. We are more than happy to help you with that. Okay. I don't know if anybody is typing at the moment, but I will briefly go through the last month and this month through the things that you need to do. Okay. I'm not 100% sure what you mean with this question, Ali. Conflict games are among adapted games. I don't know, it is up to you. Adapted games, it means that are games that you have adapted. So you are not receiving any further games from CAC. You are now adapting games for the social impacts that are relevant to your community. And if conflict prevention is an issue that is important to you or to your community, then of course you can adapt games for that topic. Yeah, if people, Jorge, regarding your question, can we see the adapted game in the extras library? Yeah, if people are changing the settings the way I just described, then everybody will be able to see those games. That's the plan. But for that, you would need to change the game into the extras library. And everybody on CAC or everybody on this OEP would be able to see the games. Not everybody on SSP, so it wouldn't be publicly available. It would be just available to the participants of this course. Okay. Cool. So for the past months, and I'm repeating these tasks, that's the red square, because I'm repeating these tasks because many of you or many of the participants have not completed the tasks. That's why I've put it up here. So you are supposed to adapt 2 existing games in June. So you take 2 existing games and create an adaptation. Then afterwards you enter those adapted games into SSP in private mode. But as I have also explained to you now, you could also change them into the extras library so everybody can see it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Atreya, you can please, I've seen you have entered games. Yeah, you can now change them into the extras library and you will also receive feedback for those games. Okay. Jaspreet, about adapting games, I would suggest we have a separate session on that, as it would take now too long to go through all of that. The webinar from last month was about how to adapt games, and it had all the details. But I'm happy to assist you with some further information, or also with the link for the webinar, and then you can watch it or ask me particular questions. But let's postpone that for after this webinar, then we can talk about that. Okay, let me go back to this red square. For June, you were supposed to adapt 2 games, enter them in SSP, and fill in the feedback questionnaire, which has been sent out 2 days ago or yesterday. I'm not sure. I think I posted it yesterday. So it has been sent to your email address. It has been posted on Facebook Workplace. So please fill in the questionnaire for June. And then obviously check Facebook Workplace regularly. I think many of you do that. And implement your 2 adaptations with your players. So if you haven't done that yet, if you haven't entered 2 adaptations on SSP, if you haven't implemented that, then this should be your focus for the next 2 weeks, for the next 1 to 2 weeks to get that done, so you can then focus on the tasks of July, which is changing the settings of the entered games to, here it says my club, sorry, that's a misspelling, it should say to extras library. Okay, so that was my mistake. Then for this month, you also should choose 2 adapted games from other participants, which you will be easily capable or able to do once people have entered their games into the extras library. And then again, at the end of July, we will provide a feedback questionnaire, which you should please fill in. And then you implement those 2 adaptations that you have chosen from other participants with your players. And the feedback form at the end of the month will give you the opportunity to give feedback to other coaches. Okay, cool. Now, this is the last slide, and then we are done for today. The summary of the tasks that you need to complete in July. So you please should finish all uncompleted tasks from June, depending on what you have done and what you haven't done yet. Then second, you should implement 2 adapted games from other participants with your team or students. You should add your adapted games to extras library game adaptations. That's the procedure that I have just explained. And at the end of this month, you should answer the feedback questionnaire for July. And now within the next week, you should obviously answer the feedback questionnaire for June, which is part of the tasks that you need to do for the past months. The next webinar will be scheduled in the first week of August. And yeah, then we will talk about some more topics regarding OEP, regarding adaptations and implementation. And also we'll probably also extract some topics again from the feedback that you are giving us in the monthly feedback form, which is very valuable. So thank you very much for everybody who is filling in this feedback form. Everybody should be filling in this form, and if you would like to receive a certificate at the end of this course, it's compulsory to fill in these feedback forms. Okay, perfect. Any more questions? Any final questions? Okay, if not, then I would like to say thank you for your participation and thank you for coming online today for this webinar. Yeah, we'll wait for your question, Jorge. Don't worry. I think it's only half written yet. Feedback for July is going to yeah, so the feedback for July, you will give feedback to other people about their games. Yeah, so I have not finally decided how I will conduct the questionnaire and what is the best way to do it. I will think about that over the next couple of weeks until the end of the month. But what you basically should do, you should play these games and then think of how those games could work better, what you would change, what went well, what did you like, what your players liked, what did you not like, what did your players didn't like, what would you do differently next time. So you should be having in mind to give feedback to other people about their games. Okay. Yeah, Atreya, I'm not sure which feedback you're talking now about. I have not checked the feedback for June yet, but yeah, everything gets put into an Excel sheet automatically once you submit your form. I have seen your feedback from the past month. Yeah, okay. I haven't checked it yet, but I can do that certainly very quickly. Let me see. Yeah, I can see now there's already 5 people and have entered their feedback, which is great. Artrea, friend Francois, Jorge, Jesus, and Benny. So yeah, thank you very much to the 5 of you for entering the feedback. That's great. Everybody else, please go to the form, enter your feedback, so we can see how you have been doing, where you need support, what questions you have. That helps us a lot. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Artrea, and thanks for following up. Cool. Is there any other questions? Can't see. I don't think I've missed anything. So yeah, let me say thank you then again. Thank you for joining in. Yeah, deadline for the feedback form is next week, Tuesday. Exactly. So you have time until next week, Tuesday, to enter the feedback for June. Yeah. And then we will see each other again on a webinar in early August. If you have any other questions in between, please let us know. I will now be in contact right after this webinar. I will get in contact with Jaspreet, as you just asked me, and we will discuss the details and your specific questions to sort it out. Okay, perfect. Then, thank you very much. I will be online for a little bit longer. If you have any questions, I can also respond via message. Thank you, and have a good evening or good afternoon, or have a good day if you are living in the Western Hemisphere and your day has just started. And if you're living in India or somewhere in the Eastern Hemisphere, then have a good night. Okay, thank you for joining in. Goodbye.